All right, so moving on to the injury report, pretty much the same as yesterday for the Commanders. Obviously, Zach Ertz isn't on here anymore since yesterday was a rest day for him. Obviously, every Wednesday is, but the same guys were limited. Dorrance Armstrong, Noah Brown, and Jonathan Jones. I expect those three guys to be fine for Sunday's game. They'll probably practice in full tomorrow, but even if they don't, if it's still in a limited capacity, I expect those guys to be good to go. Noah Brown even said yesterday himself in a little media scrum that he feels good, and he'll probably be good to go for Sunday. And then Marcus Mariota, Matt Gay, full participants again, so those guys should be fine for Sunday. The Giants have one player on the injury report. That is starting left tackle, Andrew Thomas. He was a limited participant yesterday, but today he was a DNP, did not participate. Now today, Brian Daboll said in his press conference that it's a part of the plan. They plan to, kind of ramp Andrew Thomas down after a full workload in yesterday's practice, but that is very interesting. Definitely something to keep an eye on because, even with Andrew Thomas, the Giants O-line isn't great, but without him, man, it's brutal up front. And without Andrew Thomas, man, that could really, really hurt them in Sunday's game versus us, right? So keep an eye out on, Andrew Thomas' status because that could really affect the Giants a whole lot. Now let's go over these press conferences. So Joe Wood Jr., Cliff Kingsbury, those are the two coordinators. Those guys spoke today. Joe Wood Jr. was up first. They both spoke before practice. Joe Wood Jr., he talked about Malik Nabers, and he just said that Nabers is a great receiver, an ascending receiver, right? Honestly, he's probably already a top 10 receiver in the NFL, at least in my opinion, but he missed 2 games last year, yet still put up over 1,200 receiving yards with terrible QB play last year with the Giants. So Malik Nabers, he's amazing. And Joe Wood Jr. gave him high praise. Even Trey Amos in his little media scrum in the locker room, he gave Nabers high praise, said he does not have really any weaknesses. So, we struggled with Malik Nabers in the first Giants game last year, so we have to do a better job of guarding him. And, we have an improved secondary with Amos being added, Lattimore being fully healthy, right? So hopefully we can do a better job of guarding Malik Nabers. Joe had talked about Trey Amos, said he had a really good camp. Didn't really go into game planning details in his press conference, obviously, but, Witt said they're going to do a good job. They're going to put him in position to succeed this season, starting Sunday versus the Giants, right? So I think Trey Amos is going to be really good for us this year. I feel like he has the potential to be our best cornerback this year as a rookie. But, week 1, going up against Malik Nabers, and he won't always be on Nabers, but, that'll be a challenge for him for sure. And then Joe Wood Jr. talked about Russell Wilson still being able to throw the deep ball, the moon ball, as, we famously know as. So, he's still really good at that. Like, he's good at checking down, throwing underneath, and throwing that moon ball. So, I feel like those are really the primary 2 things we have to worry about with Russell Wilson. If we can stop him from, completing the moon balls, those deep balls, then I feel like we'll have a really good chance to succeed against Russell Wilson. Moving on to Cliff and what he said in his presser. He talked about Terry, and he's looked really good since he got, back onto the practice field. What was it, last Wednesday now, I'm pretty sure at this point. And he looks in great shape, and Terry said it himself in his little media scrum yesterday. He feels in good shape. I don't think he'll be on any snap count or anything like that. Maybe he'll get a little less snaps than he usually gets, but I feel like he won't be on any snap count, so that's a great thing. And then Cliff talked about the running back room, and he said that all 4 have shown what they needed to show that they could do, which is what Cliff, the offensive coaching staff, asks from them. So that's a really good thing to hear about the running back room, and it really does sound like we're going to do like running back by committee. There won't be like one true RB1 leading the way. We're probably going to roll with the hot hand. Maybe at some point Bill really takes over as the lead back, but right now, for early on at least, it really does sound like we're going to be doing running back by committee and using all 4 of our running backs. Speaking of Bill, Cliff talked about Bill in his press conference, responding to the question asked, I think it was by Ben Standing, about, all the hype around Bill. And, Cliff said it was interesting, but he loves Bill. He loves his story. Obviously, last year with the whole, eligibility issue. He played the first game with Arizona, but then couldn't play the rest of the year because of an eligibility issue with the NCAA. But he literally was on the Arizona practice squad for the rest of the season, still practicing, which is crazy. Went out East-West Shrine Bowl, won Shrine Bowl MVP, and he worked hard. Still got drafted. If he played last year, would have been drafted earlier, but we got him in the 7th round, and he's looked like an absolute baller for us. So I'm so happy we have Bill, and I don't think he's going to be inactive on Sunday. I think he'll be active. I think he'll get touches, but I do think it'll be running back by committee early on, right? And, as the season goes on, maybe we'll, have Bill take more and more carries to have him become our lead back in the backfield. So that is it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, leave a like down below, subscribe if you're not already subbed up, and turn on notifications. Comment down below your thoughts on anything I talked about in today's video. We have a little bit uniform update. We are wearing white on burgundy on Sunday versus the Giants. It was announced a couple weeks ago that we're wearing white uniforms, but we did not know the bottoms. So we're going to be wearing white on burgundy pants, burgundy socks. We won a lot of games in that uniform combination last year, so we're wearing it week 1. I don't love the uni combo, but we do win a lot of games in that combo, so I guess I don't absolutely hate it, but just wanted to give you guys that piece of information. But yeah, that's it for today's video, and other than that, it's been King Sean, and I'm out. Peace.